house looks gorgeous.
It's getting there. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and my parents were always dead set against bikes. You know, it wasn't in their language. And it's funny because my dad he grew up in poverty. He lived in every housing project in the city. And back then you went to school where you lived, so therefore he went to every school in the city. And one of the neighbors he had was Jimmy Souza, who came up being the president of Hells Angels of all things, you know. So my dad had every opportunity to go down the wrong path. But he was straight, narrow, conservative, became an electrician, and, you know, got married young and had me, and they were dead set against bikes. So, and I like old stuff, and I don't want to be a dirtbag on a Harley like everybody else. So I got an Indian.
How old were you?
20. Yeah, it's my first bike. First bike I owned legally or anything. You know, I hid stuff. But the first time I rode a bike was with my buddy and his dad. They were into dirt bikes. And they made me phone my parents, see if it's okay, promised that I'd wear a helmet. And I didn't even own boots. The guy gave me some boots to wear. And we went up to Russian River, and it was a blast. I dug it. I really loved dirt bike riding. And I was good at it back then. Of course, the bikes hardly had any suspension or brakes or any of that stuff. I got on a modern bike, and holy moly, they're so forgiving. You could fly off a roof and land and keep going. But so that was fun, but I never was allowed to have a bike, not even a dirt bike. But yeah, so I got the Indian, and it's 47 Chief. I still have it. I got off a little lady. Her husband restored him. That was his hobby. And he had passed away, and this was the last one he was working on when he died. So it wasn't quite finished. And it was a stock Indian color of sunshine yellow. So here I am trying to be a cool badass on a yellow bike, you know, But anyway, I rode it around. How I took it home is a good story. It was long distance phone calls back then. It was all Ma Bell. We had rotary phones. And I met this lady at a car swap meet because I was still a big car guy. And there she was. Some guy had like a Indian belt buckle or something. I says, "Oh man, I'm looking for the whole bike." He goes, "Well, talk to her." So she had it, and she didn't really want to sell it. So I bugged her. I called her like every week and just bugged her. Finally, I said, "Okay." So we went up and got it, and I stashed it in the alley between the houses of my dad's house and the neighbors. And that day that I took it home, my dad goes, "Hey, what are all these long distance phone call bills for?" You know, he was pissed. So I said, "Dad, I'll go show you the result of those." So I wheeled the bike out, showed it to him. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It hadn't even been fired up yet. It was brand new, freshly restored. But the front fender hadn't been installed on it. So he goes, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" So I had to come up with a story real quick. I says, "Well, I'm going to put it in a glass case, of course. You know, it's going to rise in value, and, you know, I can't ride it." He goes, "Oh, okay. He didn't want me riding it." So then we're messing with it. Now, I have to get it running. You know, it's not valuable unless you have it running. So we get it running. I said, "Well, I got to drive it. I got to get gas in it, you know." And I inched my way out with these little drives. And I remember back then, one of the gang lived in Folsom in south of Market, and had a huge fire there. I think it was from the guys making that rush shit that you inhale, and it burned up the whole block. And I mean, it was a massive fire. And one of our buddies lived in there, and he had his dad's knucklehead and all his bikes, and then they all burned up. So we had a benefit for him. And all these guys were in the MMA then. And Indian Fred, who's Rick DeCost's brother, they all hung out at the club. So we had a benefit softball game with the Hells Angels against the MMA, and it was in Glen Park. And I got to drive the bike to that. It was like my first outing. I got my dad, you know, to let me go. And I remember one of the guys did a pop-up, and all the bikes are parked together, you know. Of all the bikes, the ball hits my bike, you know. So anyway, that's how I started inching out of the house. And all the time, I'd hotwire the bike. It wasn't finished, so it wasn't wired. So I'd run alligator clips from the battery to the coil. And, that's how I'd shut it off and put it on, and they'd fall off while I'm riding and stuff. But that was par for the course. You had to go. I wasn't going to stop for the formalities and waste time restoring the damn thing. I wanted to go. So I remember I went to meet this guy, one of my buddies, and he was late or something. So I'm not patient. I'm not a good waiter. So I'm pissed off. So I'm racing through the city, trying to find if he's at home or where we're supposed to meet or where we're going. And I remember I was going through St. Francis Wood, and as I was winding up second, had my hand on the shifter just about to snag third, which is high gear. So I'm going about 55, winding out second. And I went through a stop sign. And this car came and it made a left in front of me, which it had every right to do. It didn't have a stop sign. And I T-boned this car. It was a 4-day-old car. And the guy was almost in his driveway. He was almost home. And so my front wheel hit his front wheel, and the ass end of my bike slapped his car, just caved it in, just killed his car, murdered it. And I flew over, ass over backwards, and I remember it going dark, like in black and white. And I remember saying, oh fuck, right when I was going to snatch third and saw this guy coming. And I didn't remember landing, but I woke up in the ambulance, and the ambulance guy had this bag of weed hanging over my head, and he goes, hey, we found this on you. It's like, bullshit. I never carried that much. I always had a walletized pinner in my wallet back then, but never had a budge. So I said, I didn't want to, anything I didn't want to experience, I would just pass out again. So I'm in the ambulance, and I'm looking out, it's like, where am I? And I see palm trees. I go, oh, it must be Dolores. What the hell are we doing on Dolores, So I didn't want to deal with that, so I just passed out again. But what happened was my front end snapped off right under the headlight, and it went a block away. Never did find my glasses. And this was all before helmets and all that shit. And my engine turned in the frame sideways. One of the down tubes was out. And when the bike slapped the car, it tweaked the frame that way, which I didn't know after I had the frame straightened. And I busted my pelvis and my left foot, and I missed 4 days of work. And I tried to get the bike running while I still was in a cast, but I didn't. I couldn't find parts. I didn't have the connections in. But I rebuilt the bike, and I couldn't find the Indian telescopic forks that I wanted. They're incorrect for the bike. The bike had a girder fork. So I got a Harley front end, which I had fun with because you can get those parts. And one day I'd have it short and squat like a road racer. The other day I'd have it like a chopper, and I was having fun with it. So I used the bike like that, and then I started traveling with it, and I started meeting all the Indian guys. Like I said, in the city it was Indian Fred and Rick, and we started hanging out at SFMC, and this is when Jimmy Anderson and Teresa, they were there all the time, Dick Farr.
How old are you at this point?
Still in my 20s, I was hanging out before I got the bike, I think. Yeah. And then the downtime. But one of the guys we met was Cliff, Francis Clifford. And he was our late, great guru. He was pretty good. He snuck in the country. He was an illegal immigrant. He was a French Canadian. So he went across Canada, because he's from the east part of Canada, came down through Washington. Then World War II started, so he joined the Navy, and that erased all that illegal stuff. So out of the Navy, he became an automotive machinist, and that's what you had to be to work in a shop, whether it be a motorcycle shop or whatever. So that's what he did. And he worked for all the dealers. They weren't loyal. They were whores. Whoever offered them the most money, that's what they did. And everybody knew everybody. So Cliff worked for Perkins, he worked for Hap Jones, he worked for Dave Golden when he was starting. And then got to be buddies with him, and that's how I knew Hap. And all the Indian guys were pretty cool. They were genuine. They did their own work, they didn't have attitudes. The Harley guys, as soon as they bought a Harley at Safeway, they went and got a black t-shirt and had an attitude. It's like, screw that, So we had a lot of fun with the rivalry with the Harley Indian. And I guess they started doing the, what is it, the big run they do up in Groveland, the Harleys. Oh, they have a big run. They go up to the Redwoods. The Redwood run. Duh, yeah. So we said, well, we'll have our Indian run on the same date. Keep the riffraff there and all our Indian guys here. So me, Fred, and Rick, we put on the Indian run, and that was fun. Guys came from all over for that. And at the peak, I think we had 150 Indians attend, and that was pretty cool. But got to meet a lot of Indian guys, a lot of race guys. It was pretty cool. And it really morphed into a tight camaraderie and a lot of fun. But maybe I should shut up a while and show you some of the stuff inside.
What year did you join the club, and who were your sponsors?
Shit. Yeah, I'm lousy at dates. I don't know the year.
Roughly.
It was in the 80s because I organized the 50th anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge, and that was in 87. And I think I was in for about 2 years or so by then. Me and Tommy Perkins, we served our apprenticeship together. We were both prospects at the same time. Then when Tommy turned out, I don't know where they found him. They got him pink racing leathers, and they made him ride a Honda Rebel. And we were putting on a run from the clubhouse, and he had to lead it on this Honda Rebel with pink. He made the front page of the paper though. And all I had to do, because they knew the animosity I had with Harley crap, they gave me a black Perkins t-shirt. I always wore black Benz, and I had to hand out Harley flyers or something, you know. It was stupid. At least it wasn't the stupid thing where they always make somebody go around in a dress. I was sick of that shit. What they did to Indian Fred was good, because Jimmy Anderson had a connection with farm animals. And so we went down to San Mateo Park on 4th Street in El Camino, and we took it over a big picnic site. So they made Fred take his shirt off, and they blindfolded him, and they put him on a picnic table. And they made peanut butter balls, and they put them on him. And then they placed a duck on the table, and the duck went and ate the balls off his, bare chest. Imagine that, That was the fun stuff we did. And then who was it? White, I forget his first name. Joe White. Dick Mann used to put on this vintage motorcycle days, flat tracking and hill climbing and motocross, all with antique junk. And all the big names would come out, like Dick Mann and stuff. And we made Joe White enter the hill climb with a goat as his bike. And I think the picture's still in the clubhouse. He's wearing lederhosen, like he's in the Alps and stuff. That was good times.
Nice.
But come on in and we'll show you some junk. I just took the 101 down. It was up there where that hole is. I've been selling shit. I'm broke, So that's sold. The guy's picking it up this week. Here, dolly, whatever.
Yeah.
That's where it's stowed. I bolt it to the bottom of the loft. Then when I want to get it, I roll Big Joe up with the forks and harpoon it, and I come out and I put it down, and then I take the pallet off and I switch it 90 degrees so it's sticking out the long way. Then I just roll up here, raise it, rest it on top of the loft, roll the bike on it. I got holes in it to put tie downs, holds the bike. It's real easy. Yeah, this is Old Faithful. This was my first bike, the one that was yellow that I got from the little old lady. It's a 47 Chief, and had to get it running. And then, like I said, I hot wired it to drive around. And my license plate at the time, I didn't have a motorcycle license. This wasn't registered. Out of a cereal box, I don't know where it is. I have it somewhere. There's a little toy license plate that said Rat Fink. So when I wrecked, I'm in the hospital, the motor cop comes to check on me, and I'm his hero because of the bike, not wearing a helmet, I was okay, and he brought me my Rat Fink thing. So then I joined the club. Back then when I joined the club, it was a little more of an outlaw flavor. The club's gone through a lot of cycles. and mostly Harleys. And everybody worked for PG&E. There was, you know, other guys that were kind of conservative, but we had fun. You know, as our party days were young. I didn't really go on all the big rides, heyday, or any of that stuff. I just wasn't into that family stuff. I was into other things. So, like me and Indian Fred after the club, we'd go party, and he was really connected. And we'd go to these clubs and stuff, and then when they closed at 2 in the morning, we'd run around in the rain, and we'd race up all the steep hills and try to get airborne, and then see how much we could skid going down them. And then we'd run across all the pedestrian bridges across like Hospital Curve, all the freeways, just stupid shit. And then we'd go to work the next day. You know, it's just, that's what we did. So, but this is Old Faithful. It's actually in the bad bike corner now. I've been around the world pretty much 4 times with this bike. And I change it. I put on its traveling fenders. And the first time I went, I met Fred there. I shipped the bike blindly. There was a gang called, not a gang, but an outfit called Survival Research Laboratories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these guys were nuts. They put on these illegal shows. They made machines that destroyed each other. And they got art grants for it. And it was all underground. They did their shows like 1 o'clock at night illegally in a construction zone or something. Because they used like loud noises, air cannons, real iffy shit. And they let stuff loose in the crowd and you had to run for your lives. But they were putting a show on in Europe. They were going to tour Europe. And they said, well, if you be our roadies, we'll put you up. So I was okay. And Fred and I, when I was president, Fred was my vice president, and we went to Yonkers to celebrate with them. Well, that was a whole other story. But we met the Survival Research Lab at, I think it was Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium, one of the baseball fields, because they were doing a show in the parking lot there. So it kind of worked out, and we saw how it works. It's okay. So when they offered Europe in front of us, yeah. By the way, that Yonkers anniversary was up in the Catskills, and somebody famous was supposed to play. They were flying in, and the weather was so bad, the plane was delayed, and they didn't make it. So we're up in these mountains, and at the time, all the Yonkers guys were prison guards, and they're worse than the criminals locked up. They all had the same tattoos, and they're doing coke out of baggies in the rain with buck knives. And so they had a big flatbed trailer that was going to be the stage for the band. The band never shows up. I think they had a landslide that took the road out. It was treacherous. And we had enough. Fred goes to crash out. He gets underneath the trailer. Well, the guys start using the back wheel as target practice. They're shooting guns. Fred's behind the tire, you know, like, hey, don't. And I'm there with my girlfriend, and I get puking drunk. And I remember we had a rental car. I think we just crashed in a rental car, and I went to puke out the window and didn't have it all the way down, so it went in the glass and down the door. Oh, it was terrible. But and we got separated from Fred. So we went into town, into New York City, and we were going to fly to where the Smithsonian's moved now. Now it's where the airplane part is. It's in the airport, but before it was with the rest of the Smithsonian. So we met Fred at the airport. We got lucky there. Me and Fred have been separated in crazy places in London, and how we found each other is bizarre. But anyway, so that's the Europe trip. First, I got kicked out of the house with my dad. So me and the bike, I get kicked out. I'm in the club having fun, and me and another buddy, we want to go to England. And I'm renting a house with 2 other guys. It's an animal house, and it's crazy. You know, I had a Scott Flying Squirrel then too. That's a British bike. It's water cooled 2-stroke. It's like a 1920s RD, you know, and they were that fast. But the landlord didn't understand that. So I was always, you know, afraid of getting kicked out. But anyway, one of my buddies says, hey, you know, we're going to go to Europe. I said, yeah, let's do it. Ship my bike, we'll go. Spend a month there. And that was Sonny. I don't know if you guys know Sonny. He lives out by Harley. And got a bunch of Bruff Superiors and stuff. Anyway, so I'm all excited, and I tell my mom, I says, "Hey mom, I'm gonna go to Europe." She goes, "Oh honey, I think that's fine. I'll pay for everything." I go, "Mom, I'm gonna ship my bike. I'll be gone a month." I says, "Well, it'll be your birthday present and Christmas present because they're only 2 days apart." And my mom married well. She could do it. So I said, "Shit, that's it. I'm going. It's a done deal, you know." But all the while I'm in this animal house as a renter, just deathly afraid of getting evicted. I says, "You know what? I'm gonna buy a house. Screw this." I was 25. So Sonny went without me. I bought the house. I go, "Mom, you're gonna be so proud of me. Instead of going fucking off in Europe, I'm gonna buy a house, do the mature thing." "Oh no, honey, I can't help you. You're too young to be tied down to that." So she never ever helped me financially. So bought the house, huge project. You know, I had to raise the house up, do foundation. But I was young, and my dad helped me, and you know, whatever. Funny, I lived life backwards. My mortgage payment was $200 a month. It was a lot of money then. A lot of money. It was rice and beans every night for. So I didn't go to Europe. Sonny went without me. He homesteaded, where you find an abandoned house and you just crash there. You can do that legally. He stayed over a year. He bought a Bruff Superior, cruised the UK on a Bruff, came home with 2 Bruffs. He still lives in a container. He never did financially recover from that. This is, 30-something years ago. But he had fun, he had a lot of connections, and I did the mature thing and bought a house, and it's a beautiful house. I still have it. Half the garage, I couldn't get all my shit out of it and put it here, so I put a wall down the middle of the garage, and I rent the house out, and I have half the garage locked up. But so that's what happened there. So finally, we did go to Europe, and that's when the SRL told Fred and I to go. Well, that's when I was the president and Fred was vice president. Well, what would you do? We went to Europe. So we were gone for over a month, so we lost our offices. Oh well. But I remember Fred went ahead, and I was to meet him in London. And this is before cell phones and all that stuff. I said, okay, what we'll do is we'll meet at Big Ben at 12 noon. There was about a 5-day window of opportunity when we know we'd overlap. So I go there. I shipped my bike through my buddy Rocky, who was in the trucking. We just lost Rocky. I phoned him up, Rocky, where's my bike? Where's my bike? And the smart ass would give me the longitude and latitude of the ship, I was like, shit. But anyway, it arrives on time a day before I'm supposed to arrive. I'm thinking perfect, and I boxed it up. I put it in a crate, and I put extra transmission in it, extra generator, all my shit. I didn't even own a helmet. Over there in Europe, you need a helmet. So I had a stolen SF meter made helmet. And they said, oh, no oil or gas in the bike. And I thought, that's stupid. I didn't realize they meant the container. So I put all the oil and gas separate in the saddlebags. Well, one of the oils popped open and puked all in the helmet. So I'm like, oh. So I found some sawdust at the port. But anyway, my bike gets there the day before me. So I show up at the docks wanting to get my bike. And they're like, where's your customs papers? Where's all your bill of lading? Where's all this bullshit? I don't know nothing about that. I said, come on, man, give me my fucking bike. All my clothes, all my belongings are in it, I'm homeless in London, which is real expensive. So, there's no bribing these guys. They're totally by the book. And I'm thinking, fuck. So they're trying to help me, but meanwhile, I can't get to any of my supplies, my clothes or nothing. So I'm wandering the streets of London homeless. And I'm going to the docks every day. And then I got to run to Big Ben at noon to meet Fred. And that just fucks up your whole day. Like if you want to take you to a museum, oh shit, I got to get to Big Ben at noon. And I'm going there, it's like day 5. I'm in bad shape, depressed, Finally, Fred shows up. He's got this other guy in tow. And Fred's riding his 37 Chief with ape hangers and no front fender. And the tire's bald, it's showing threads. And he attended an Indian run in Germany, and they did field events, and he won the field events. So they gave him brand new old quarts of Indian oil. It's pretty cool. So we're in Westminster Bridge, which is the bridge that goes across the Thames, and the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben are on the end of it. And they're doing a little street construction there. So we're in the middle of the traffic, middle of the bridge. Cars going both ways. Oh, there's dirt. We had cans of beer, we're drinking beer. We're draining Fred's oil, we're changing his oil, using the real Indian oil in the middle of Westminster Bridge. And then this modern Harley comes up, and it was their brand new, I forget what they called it. They had a longer front end, Softail Custom, brand new. I thought, oh, some fucking yuppie, you know. And he comes up and he's real nice. Oh, I thought you guys would break down. You need any help? I'm like, no, get out of here, you know. He goes, oh, you're American. Oh, anybody need a place to stay? That'd be me, you know. So Stuart was his name. We changed the oil on the bike. We go to a pub. Stu's kind of a nerd. He don't drink. And this is back in the day when in England they closed the pubs from like 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that came from World War I because the guys making the bullets and stuff, the ordnance, they'd get shithoused at lunch and they'd make duds. So all of England closed the pubs right after lunch for a couple hours. But before what they call the bells, where they jingle the bell for last call, you could order 10 pints of beer and stack them up and stay there. You just couldn't order any. So that's what we did. We were young, we drank like fish, and their drunk driving laws are really fierce. And Stu's like, can't believe this shit. He's, hey, I gotta go, you know. Here's my address, and I'm here. And I'm right on, see you. We wanna. So we drank that whole couple hours and then some, and then I didn't have my bike, so I'm on foot, and everybody's packed down, so they couldn't ride me. So I said, well, let's meet at Piccadilly Circus in Soho, and that's the partying place. So we did, and we met up there, and it's a crazy one-way system. I mean, San Francisco's got a one-way system, but this is really crazy. I mean, these streets were made before they had cars or anything, you know. So we closed the bars then, and we'll meet at the fountain, Piccadilly Circus. And the fountain's pretty cool. It's a giant fountain, and they, on purpose, built it off kilter so it leaks, so not all the hippies don't all hang out in the same spot. But Fred ended up grabbing some gal, getting lost in the one-way system, and I lost him. Never saw him. Gone. It's like, fuck. So I'm back to being homeless, but I found Stu's house. I'm staying with Stu now. But so finally I get my bike, I go out to the docks, I get my bike, and we have a wet primary, a wet clutch, and it had all leaked out while I was on the ship, because it's on the ship for a month. So my primary is dry, my clutch is starting to pack up, and I'm going through London, which is like Rome, it's just fucked, you know. And I had straight pipes, and I had saddlebags on my front fender, saddlebags on my back. And back then we didn't have travel gear, so we went to the like Salvation Army, and we got leather suitcases, and we stuck everything in black garbage bags, budgied it all on. So I'm lost. I know Fred Willar was the Harley dealer there. He was well known, and he wasn't into new bikes, even though he was the dealer. He had a museum in his shop of all these antique Harleys. And so I got to get to Fred Willar's shop to get some oil for my primary. So I'm going through traffic and these big city squares they have, and Bobby's there. Pulls me over and like wants to see all my paperwork and my numbers, and I'm, you know, Eric draws a crowd. And he's all polite, soft-spoken, and I just fucking lost it. And I screamed at him. I says, motherfucker, I gotta get to Fred Willar's shop and get some oil for this motherfucker. How the fuck do I get there? No, very well, sir. You go this way, that way. And Fred was just closing the doors. He's an old man then. And he heard the bike, so he opened it up, and he just said, hey, have them run to the shop. Charge me for the oil, which is real expensive, like $14 for a quart back then. But I did it, got it, so I was okay. But I had my bike, had my material, my clothes, but I lost Fred. But I remember Fred said, hey, we're gonna go to the Bulldog Bash. And that was a big party put on by the Hells Angels. The Hells Angels are huge there. And it's at Long Marston, which is an abandoned U.S. Army airfield, and they do drag racing there. And it was like Woodstock. They had bands 24/7, and it was just a sea of people. And right when I pull in the gates, I see Fred. Oh, yeah, I'm over by that flag. Okay, great. Well, there's 50 flags. They're all proud. There's Wales is a country, Scotland is a country, England's a country. They're not the UK. Everybody, you're either Welsh, Scottish, or English, or Irish. They come over the, so and they're what's the word? Proud of it, So I couldn't find them. So I go through this bulldog bash, which just was crazy. Sleeping in the mud, watching drag racing, partying 24/7. Sure enough, on the way out, I see Fred again. So we hook up, and Fred needs money. So back then, you had to wire money. So he said, I'll phone my brother and have him wire money. We'll have to go to a city big enough to accept this, because we're out in the boonies, when there's beautiful little towns and villages. And I remember I saw these Jaguars running around. They had plastic cases over them. And I put two and two together. I says, we're in Coventry. That's where Jags are made. And they're road testing these brand new Jags. Let's follow one in. So we latched onto it, and we followed into the Jag Works. And of course, it's raining. That's what it does there. It rains. And they got covered parking for motorcycles. We thought, man, this is cool. So we park our bikes, and we trundle over to the reception area, and there's a official secretary, and there's a Sterling tea set, and there's crumpets and cookies, and all these badass race Jags around. So we go in, hello, love, we'd like to see the works, the factory. Well, sorry, love, that's only, you have to sign up for it. But you're welcome to see the race car museum and have some tea and crumpets, right on. So we do that, had enough of that. We're walking back to the bikes, and we're walking past the factory. The door's open. So we just walk in like we own the joint. And it was cool. It was like V12s are coming out of the sky, mating with frames, and there's pallets of Jag independent asses and stuff. And so there's kids there that have full-on spiked mohawk hairdos. Punk rock was big then. And then there's like ancient artist old men, and they're working together. It was a trip. And we're walking in like road scum. We've been on the road 6 days by then, and everything burned diesel. So we're black. You don't imagine, back then the diesel was, you get lung infections. And we're in bad shape, and everybody's looking at us, but we just act like we own the joint. And Fred worked in the body shop at S&C Ford in Dolores. So we went to where they made the custom bodies, where they did the limousines and shit. They leaded them all together. It was cool. We had a blast. But that's what started my addiction to blasting to Europe. And I've been to Europe with this bike more times than I can remember. I mean, I went every year. I took a month off. And all the guys I worked with were like, you might not have your job when you come back. Gives a fuck, So I was shipping this poor bike back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally my buddy Stuart, the one who found us on Westminster Bridge, turned out he was an electrician too, and our birthdays are a day apart. But he says, hey, send me a basket case, I'll build it, and it'll be your bike when you come over. So Cliff built the motor. We built the motor for him here, and I sent him a basket. Because by then I was really wheeling and dealing Indians. And I had 50 at one time. I just was addicted. And I'd go to all the swap meets and just buy them. Or I'd see parts. Whether I needed it or not, I would buy the part. And I tried to instill that in Cullen, we created a monster there now. He's catching on. But I had all these parts, and then somebody would phone me up and say, hey, I need a brake drum for a 39 Chief. I said, I know I got some, but... So I would cherry pick, and I want to keep the best one. And one day I went through all my parts, and I made a whole bike out of my parts. I got a 39 Chief, all out of beautiful parts. It's on the loft in there. But anyway, so I send a basket case to Stu, and it was a 44 Chief, 1944 military. But he put first squirted sheet metal on it. And I used that. And Stu's like a little 90-pound guy. It was hard for him to start. He was more of a Harley guy. He couldn't really ride the Indian. Left-hand throttle threw him off. And so I rode the bike. I rode the bike so much I wore it out. It's just crazy. But this is the one that started it all. I still have it. It's in the bad bike corner because down the street from the clubhouse at the old homestead, Bucks it used to be called, we went to a funeral there. One of the guys on a New Year's Day ride had a clencher, a real early bike with the clencher wheels, and it popped, which they do. And he went down right in front of, he was in front of his wife. She witnessed it all. Apparently, I wasn't there, but he got up or sat up and was speaking and everything was fine, and then just died. So went to the funeral there. Lynn Miller played the bagpipes. I was in my kilt. I don't know if you notice, I'm Scottish. This bike has my family tartan on the front. That's my Scottish plaid, you know, that's our family symbol. Usually this guy's decked out with red hair and a goatee. He just has his glasses on now. I don't know if you can see that. But, so we're at this service or whatever at the bar down the street from the club, and it's time to go. So this thing's a hot rod. It's all stroked and stuff. And I grab a handful to leave, you know, you got to taste up a little. And the light turn or something, I was too fast to make the left turn on Folsom. So I went through Folsom and I hit the brake because the next alley had a stop sign for me. When I hit the brake, one of these plunger castings broke and it cocked the wheel sideways in the frame, locked up and skidded. So I went skidding through the stop sign in the intersection. Luckily, the guy who had the right of way stopped. I didn't drop it, but I couldn't roll it because the back wheel was locked. And I'm in a kilt, and kilt shoes are the slipperiest things known to man. And I had to drag this son of a bitch to the side and walk back to the homestead. And Clint was there. Clint was a member. And he had a four-wheel drive truck. It wasn't jacked up or anything. It was stock, but they're kind of high. It took 10 of us to lift this up and put it in the truck. So I got it home. I got it rolling again, but I replaced the plunger. I just, it's in the bad bike corner. I haven't touched it. You know?
How long has it been in the bad bike corner?
Years.
Years.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're in the shop part of the place. This house was built in '75 by an old geezer. He was a car guy. He was a hermit. And this was his shop. He was into Model Ts, and he had a 25 white dump truck. They were chain driven with solid rubber tires. Anyway, he had this I-beam overhead, but the building stopped here. I bumped it up 4 feet. Actually, me and Culla bumped it up 4 feet. Culla helped me a lot in the beginning. And this room had a cement floor, but he was so cheap, I think he used sea sand, and you could scratch the cement with your fingernails. So I lowered the floor, I broke it all out, lowered the floor about a foot, and put this new slab in. That gives me 10 feet. And these bike lifts I got from old M&H Cycle. He was the motorcycle machinist on the bottom of the hill, Daly City. And I had them in the city house, but I transplanted them here. They're great. They're the best things since sliced bread. You roll the bike up on the rails, you could spin it around, or I could take the rails off and pick the bike up by the middle so I could take the wheels off. They're air actuated. Then I built this table because I could put the bike on the table with this. So I could work on 3 bikes here. And the back table there is actually made out of bowling alley material. And the bowling alley's, it seems like it's about 4 feet wide. And it was 4 feet wide when I bought this place. Because the old geezer was about this tall and lanky. I couldn't reach the 4 feet. So I ripped the bowling alley in half. And then I covered it in tin. So this is essentially for the bikes, for working on the bikes. Although since I've moved here 8 years ago, I haven't been able to lift a wrench in creativity because I'm working on this goddamn house all the time. Really. The only thing I do is repairs. But I calculated with the lifts there and the bench, I didn't have enough room for a car. So we bumped it out 4 feet. And that settled that. We put a bathroom in there. And actually, Mary and I lived in this room for 2 years while the house was being built. Because we tore the house down. It looked like a double wide. It was horrible. He used 1/4-inch masonite for siding. And where the roof met the walls, that's exactly what it did. There was no gutter, no eave. So, I mean, the place was horrible. But anyway, I started in the garage. So let's go in, and that's what sold me on the place. It had a 6-car garage, because he was a car guy, but it was a dirt floor garage, and the level of the dirt floor was 5 feet higher than this. So when you open this door, you had stairs to go up. And this shelf was the level of the dirt floor. So we excavated. Here, watch your head higher there. We dug all this out, supported the shack of a barn. Oh, we got a bird, hummingbird. Happens. And we did this all on the slide, no permit. And then I actually bumped the front of the building out 4 feet. Oh, can you get the hummingbird? You see him? He's on the handlebars up there. There he goes. Yeah. Happens all the time, actually. But yeah, we lowered the floor 5 feet, poured in a slab. It's like a 9-inch slab because I knew I was going to put all these car lifts in. And my neighbor came and did all the subway tile. And then I had an engineer, a local guy, cool guy, and I wanted to put a loft in. I go, well, where should I put the posts to hold up the loft? He goes, why do you want to put them in posts? Well, how else are you going to do it? So he said, no, you cantilever it out. So those are I-beams, and they're through bolted through the foundation, because the foundation goes up to that shelf almost. And it's all new. So there's no visible means of support. It's 40 feet long, sticks out 6 feet, it's 8 feet high. It's great. And how I get the bikes up and down, Big Joe here. Big Joe's a walk-behind forklift with a car battery. He can lift 1,500 pounds, 12 feet in the air. Perfect for me, because the bottom of these trusses are 12 feet. I have this aluminum dolly that's stowed there now. That's where I keep it out of the way. But I harpoon it with Big Joe, pull it out, roll it up to a bike, roll it off and on. I just rolled this 101 Scout off. I sold it. That's the other thing about this house. It made me broke, and I've been selling shit. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care anymore. Bikes don't mean anything anymore. But anyway, yeah, this is going bye-bye. I had an original paint sidecar for it, but a lefty sidecar. That'll fuck you up. These are cool 101 Scouts. They're considered the best bike in the world, best handling bike. It's what they use in the Wall of Death to this day. And you can drive them without your hands on the handlebars. Just steering with your knees. They're so stable, nimble. And most of the ones here in America are 45s, 45 inches. What's that, 750? I think it is. And the European ones are only 600s. I think that's, yeah, I don't know, 600 cc's. So that's standard. All the export stuff, they use motorcycles differently. It's more of a way of life. Here in America, it's more of a sport. That's why we want the big road hogs, because we have the big roads. Guys in England in these little lanes. Poor bird, he'll find a way out. But, so after I got my Chief and was a punk ass with that, hanging out with Cliff, I got a Scout. And we stripped it down, put knobbies on it, stroked it, put Chief flywheels in it. What a wheel stander that was. And that was my dirt bike. And me and my old girlfriend would go up Russian River, run in the mud. I had an ATC 3-wheeler too, those were a lot of fun. And then I got into racing, flat tracking. And you couldn't cheat, because that bike was a stroker, that's considered cheating, and you couldn't have brakes. And so we started doing the flat track thing, and it was fun. And in fact, there's the jacket. I would wear my welding jacket, and you can stay there, I'll bring it. And 2 pairs of jeans, I'd go flat tracking. This, I use it as a welding jacket now because it's all tattered. This was my jacket. And the Scout I've since sold, but it's based off a Sports Scout. And this one here with the red fork, that's a Sports Scout. Class C. They kicked ass in their day. Ed Kretz won the first Daytona race on one, 37, in 1937. That's a 37. They pretty much dominated. Harley's answer was a WR Harley 45. And they're tricked. They have roller cams and all that kind of stuff. It's neat to race stuff. So that was my second bike. And then I got a 4-cylinder. 4-cylinders are like Duesenbergs. It's like they're just not even a dream. Like I shouldn't even be thinking of them. And then I get one. And that's this one here. 37.4. This is the one I led the parade across the Golden Gate Bridge with Hap with. And that's why it says Golden Gate Bridge Special there. And this has been a great bike. It's what they call an upside down 4. And the engine, the matching numbers engine for this bike is actually on the shelf up there. It's the one with the chrome cover. And you can't tell from here, but there's a reason they call them upside downs. And that's because these things are F-heads. One valve's actuated overhead, the other one's flathead. So they face each other. And usually when you have that scenario, it's IOE, intake over exhaust. Your overhead valves are usually your intake, and your exhaust is the flathead. But they swapped it around for 2 years, in 36 and 37. So now your exhaust comes out high, they call them a leg burner, and you have an updraft carburetor like a tractor. They ran better, but they were ugly, just butt ugly. So it didn't catch on, they went back in 38 to the conventional intake over exhaust. But that's what's weird about these. They call them upside downs. So I use this chassis, this bike, as my rolling test bed for my 4-cylinder engines. So that's actually a 41 4-cylinder engine that belongs to that 4 in there. We'll go back in the other room. But it's a pretty cool bike. Is there 2 of these guys in there?
That's a dragonfly.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big ass dragonfly.
Yeah, there he goes. Wow.
All right.
Like I said, I forget where we left off, but I used the 37.4 as a rolling test bed. So I'm breaking in an engine that belongs to a 41 4-cylinder in the other room. It's cool because it has 4 separate pipes. The pipes are under the bike. So next to it is a 53 Chief. That's the last year they made Indians in America. They're very rare. They by then Indian was in bad shape, and they didn't have a big enough order to the Lincoln Carburetor Company. They didn't have the minimum amount. So they said, hey, we need 50 carburetors, or they're sorry, you gotta order 1,000 or something. So by then, I can't think of the company, my memory's going, but a British concern bought into Indian to help them. And he says, hey, no problem. I own Royal Enfield, I own Matchless, and a bunch of other parts companies. He owned Amel. So 52 and 53, most of your civilian Indians are equipped with Amel's carburetors, a British carburetor, which require all kinds of different weird controls. Now, British bikes have measly, puny little shrimpy 7/8 handlebars, where American bikes have big old macho 1-inch handlebars. That's just a thing. So to find Amel controls that fit 1-inch handlebars, that's hen's teeth. That's the fun shit about Indians. I mean, anybody can have a bunch of 47 Chiefs, but when you start getting this weird shit and all the subtle differences, it makes it fun. Now, the Amels were fire starters, and the people hated them. Most of them threw them away and put the linkers back on. But all this stuff's rare. So I finally got a 53 Chief, and I never thought I would. I mean, they're super valuable and ultra rare, and there's a lot of 53 isms, like the ugly seat, the Barcalounger seat. That seat is solid, rigidly mounted to the frame. It's coil spring inside. It's like a sofa, and it's real comfortable. The Amel's another weird thing. That color, the coral, that's a 53 only thing. And so I always liked these 53 isms, and I always wanted it. But then, through all my hunting and scavenging, I found a lot of 53 cop parts. Like, how am I gonna marry all this shit together? Because cop bikes had no chrome. The crash bars were black, the tubes on the forks were black, they didn't run the Barcalounger seat, they didn't run the amyl. Their carburetors actually said police on them. New York City was the famous outfit, the department that had all the cop bikes. So I'm thinking, how am I gonna have a cop bike that's this color and this has dual exhaust? And I said, I know. Chief of Police in Mexico City could have whatever the fuck he wants. So if you look, this thing's all done up as the Chief of Police for Mexico City. And since it is a chief, it says El Jefe on the pedestrian slicer there. And then I got the seal of the cities painted on the chain guard. And this is all hand painted. The guy who did all this was just an artist. He was from South Africa. We copied a decal that my buddy had on a tank for that painting. That's the seal of the city way down there. And then that used to be supposedly as a decal behind this Indian script, and these were 80 inches. Well, I stroked mine, mine's an 84. So that's all hand painted, but it looks like a decal. So this is my Mexican cop bike, and it's the best feeling in the world when some idiot's going 3 miles an hour in front of you, you light them up with the fucking siren and the red light. Get the fuck out of the way. Or you got 3 bicycles abreast up on Skyline here, just light them up. Of interest is that 4-cylinder motor next to the bike. It's not mine. That's a Cleveland 4. It's made out in Cleveland. They're inline 4 cylinders. To me, that's the ultimate American 4-cylinder. The transmission unbolts. Because otherwise, you got to take the whole engine apart. It's like a Sportster for a 4-cylinder. All that stuff is Ace and Cleveland, and then, believe it or not, there's a 17 Indian Model O back there. These are all my buddies in Europe who buy this shit here, and now with the lockdown, it's stuck. This is the Indian staff car. It's a 37 cord, coffin nose cord. These were way ahead of their day. Cord was an industrialist. He bought companies. He bought Auburn. And Auburn started out as a buckboard company in the mid-1800s, horse-drawn buckboards. Then they gradually made cars. Cord bought Auburn. He bought Duesenberg. And then he started an outfit, the Cord, after his namesake. He also owned Lycoming engines. They made airplane engines. And he owned Stinson Aircraft. He owned shipbuilding companies. So this car was designed by Gordon Burig, and they were going to call it the Baby Duesenberg, but they decided to call it a Cord, to honor Cord. It has a specially designed Lycoming engine. They only made 2,000 of these, over 36 and 37. So it's a flathead V8. The exhaust comes out the top, which really helps with cooling. It's got aluminum heads, aluminum intake, and an aluminum oil pan. It's unibody, and it's front-wheel drive. Transmission comes all the way out to here. And it's independent front suspension, which is unheard of, and hydraulic brakes. So Ford didn't come out with hydraulic brakes till 39. Here they had it in 36.
Now, wasn't there something about one model had the external exhaust and one model didn't?
Yeah, most of your supercharged ones, they had a centrifugal supercharger driven off the cam. This does not have it. Those usually always had the external pipes. This one just has the external pipes, no supercharger. But the problem with the supercharger, it had to spin like 14 grand to produce air. And it was driven off of really fine teeth on the can. And those teeth, couldn't handle that. The torques, they always broke. I don't know if you can see the shifter on the steering column. That's what they call a pre-select.
Sure.
You put the car in first. It's a 4-speed. Fourth is overdrive.
You put it in first, you let the clutch out, you go. While you're going, you bang second, and when you want it to shift, you put the clutch in and it automatically shifts. Same with third. So it's called pre-select. In essence, all this is a very complicated wafer switch. It's an electric switch. And it tells a solenoid up front what to do, and vacuum from the engine when you push the clutch in, thus moves these pneumatic rams. So there is a lot to go wrong. So if you kill the engine, you're fucked. You're stuck in that gear because it needs the engine running for vacuum to shift. Super, super complicated. But yeah, these were movie star cars. They were always kind of expensive. It's fun, but they were never refined. Because the stories, Cord was making them, and back then it was the calendar year that dictated the year of the car. And some president, whoever the president was back then, wanted to stimulate the economy. He says, no, we got to bump it up. So to this day, the new year car comes out in September. So they forward everything 4 months or so. Well, this thing wasn't ready yet, and the New York Car Show was the debut. That was what sold cars. So the story is they sent 6 of these Cords with wooden transmissions, and he was able to do it because he already was an existing car guy. Like Tucker, he got screwed by Congress because he wasn't a car guy, and couldn't come up. They thought he was bluffing or faking. But Cord got away with it because he was a legitimate car maker. So the car was a hit at the New York show. They took in a bunch of orders and they promised everybody, okay, Christmas, you'll have your car. Well, of course, Christmas came and went. Thing wasn't ready. So they gave those paying customers a desk set. Back then you had pens that you dipped in the ink, and the desk set had 2 pens and a little bronze Cord car. Those fucking desk sets are worth more than a car now. Yeah. But this is a 100-mile-an-hour car from the mid-30s, an American car. A lot of firsts. No running boards. Really low. These cars are super low. Hidden headlights. First hidden gas cap. You gotta lift the door to get to the gas. Like I said, the front wheel drive. Here's one of the pneumatic slave cylinders here. And these are all the solenoids, the electrically operated valves to let the vacuum in or out. So the thing's only 6 volts. So you only got half the juice you need, If you got a shitty connection, you're fucked. And if you got a vacuum leak, you're screwed. Just, and it's got the turning radius of about 3 acres. Where the rolls I could turn around in here. I swear to God, when you're driving it almost seems like the front wheels could reverse themselves in the wheel well. This thing's super nimble. It's only happy when it's going 90. And you have absolutely no connection with the road. The steering wheel's like waving a dish in the air. You can't feel it. Even the shifter, I'll throw it up on the lift. The shifter, it's an American, I think, hydromatic transmission behind a big aluminum V8 with 2 SUs side by side. No matter how you drive it, it gets 8 miles a gallon. But it's so much fun. When I was looking for houses up here, I'd roll up in this, and the real estate gal would just about come out and blow you. Little did she know, there's an empty Bud can in the back seat. And, no, this thing is so much fun. It rides great. It runs good. It's gorgeous. The interior is perfect. I don't know if you get It's got the cocaine, picnic table doors, it's, smell the leather. Yeah, this one's fun too. They're worth nothing. I got this car for free. It's worth about $5,000. They're so complicated too. In fact, I'll turn the battery on, and this will be a trick. I keep the batteries turned off. Batteries are a problem. Okay, so listen when I open this front door. There'll be a distinct click. Hear it? That's a solenoid to activate the hydraulics to lower the car for ease of in and out. Same happens with the trunk. It squats the ass so you can load the trunk. All that shit's disconnected because it's way too complicated. Too much shit to go wrong. This big ass solenoid here, it turns the mechanical action from your shifter to God knows what to shift the transmission. So when you put it in gear, you don't even know it. You have absolutely no communication with the road with this thing. This is a unibody. I think it's about 4,000 pounds. It's a real heavy car. This is the first year of the slab side Silver Shadow. And the hoods are aluminum. Yeah, but this one single post lift is great. Because otherwise you'd have a 4-poster and that just hogs up your garage. Or even a 2-poster. You know, I couldn't get anything in and out. So this is expensive, but I got a phone call one day. A guy wanted an Indian. You get that all the time. I go, well, what do you want? And he knew what he wanted. And that blew me away, you know. Well, I want something in the 20s. Okay. So I brought him over, and he's looking. And I had my little Prince there, 1925 Indian Prince, which was mainly made for the export model, because they're a single-cylinder little gay bike, you know. It was cool. I had it hanging over my desk in my office in the city. It's a cute little thing. And he saw it, and he's looking, he's asking, and I'm pricing them all out, and I could tell they're way over his head, and finally he just says, I'll take that one. And the next day he came back with 14 grand. Oh, shit, you know? So I bought that lift and this lift. Otherwise could have never afforded them, you know? That'll be that. So back to the bikes. Here's a 48 Chief. This is just like Cullis. This one's original paint. It's kind of gaudy, got all foo-foo bullshit on it, which is fun. These are cool, these windshields. They're aftermarket windshield. Safeco or something made them. I hope I can do this without, everything's kind of crispy. Goes up like a window shade. Almost. And then these things fold out and it's supposed to rest on top of there. I don't want to roll it up because this stuff's all crispy and old. But so you can have it in a big high position or this low position. And it looks cool in the low position. So yeah, 48 post-war Indian Chiefs are kind of all the same. They're like 55, 6, 7 Chevys. 46 was the first civilian model after the war. Essentially the same thing. There's a few itty bitty parts that are 1 year only. And to do a bike correct, that's the fun shit. You know, like me and I would go up to color, oh, that's not the right part. You know, it's a stupid little stuff. But 48 came out with aluminum oil pump and an idiot light instead of an amp gauge. You know, they started getting cheaper. But I have a 46, 7, and 8. My 46 I keep with my buddy in Ohio. And it's got nose art on the tank. And it's of my ex. And I used to call her Dumpling. It says Dumplings Go Buggy. And it's like Betty Page on a P-38. I don't know if you guys know what a P-38 is. It's a twin-engine World War II fighter. And it had 2 booms go out the back and formed the tail. And she's like surfing on this thing. She's riding it like a skateboard, and she's got reins to each engine. And she's in garter belt stuff. It says Dumplings Go Buggy. Mary sees that, it's going to be ugly. She doesn't know about that. For some reason, she don't like anything to do with the X. Here's a cutie. This was Henry Dolger. Henry Dolger developed and built Westlake and the avenues, period. That was him, Dolger Homes. And he had a new revolutionary method of making houses. I think they were framed with redwood. Anyway, his mechanic built this car for his kids. And it had an old engine in the back, like a Briggs & Stratton, and it had a shifter. And the engine had a belt drive, had a pulley to the axle,
had an electric horn, all the lights worked, had reverse lights, because when you pull this lever, it slid the whole engine forward, which made the belt slack, but then there was a drum on the engine, and it caused a friction drive in the opposite rotation with the axle, so you had reverse. And I didn't have any kids, I never had any kids, never got married or any other nonsense. That's why I always went to Europe and fooled around. That's why I got a bunch of Indians. So, I didn't have kids, so my buddy had a kid. I was like, hey, you got the kid, you use it. Then my ex had grandkids. Oh shit, I need the car back. Oh, I loaned it to my cousin for his 4 boys up in Clear Lake. And they ruined it. They actually killed the engine, replaced it with a modern engine. It doesn't have that reverse effect anymore. They actually repainted it. This was all rattle can silver. It's the same color red that it was, but it's a cool car. I mean, you can see the wheels on it. So that's the story about this thing's here. Then this is a 36 Indian 3-wheeler, what they call a dispatch tow. And these are kind of cool, how these came about. Indian beat Harley to the 3-wheeler scene. And the reason they did is the Indian brass was having lunch with the Packard brass. And the Packard guys were complaining, shit man, every time Mrs. Rothschild needs her limousine serviced, I gotta send Clem and Zeke in the shop pickup to go get the car and bring it back for a tune-up. That's 2 guys gone, you know? So Indian goes, oh, okay, we'll make this 3-wheeler. I don't have the parts on it, but it had a little A-frame that pivoted down. It was a tow bar. So they could just send Clem out to the Rothschild estate. In the meantime, they had the thing all painted up with the advertising of the dealership. He could put the tow bar down and it would latch on the back of the Packard, and he would just drive the Packard and tow this thing home. So only one guy. These things have reverse. They're essentially a sports scout, like the red thing above it. It's a 2-part keystone frame of these scouts. The engine is a stressed member. So you unbolt the solo ass end and you bolt on the 3-wheeler ass end. These are super rare, super valuable. The reverse transmissions are just ridiculously rare and sick and complicated. This is one of the funnest forms of motorcycling I ever had, is the 3-wheeler. And the other form, I don't have any here, is a pre-16 bike. I've lived in Scotland for months at a time, and I always lived in an Indian motorcycle shop that my buddy had, with no shower. And this was my daily transportation, or a 101 Scout. And the 101 Scout was original paint that they smuggled out of Czechoslovakia. A lot of bikes come from the East Bloc countries because the families considered them valuable during the war, and they would wall things up. Cars, motorcycles, the china, the silver, they were false walls, brick walls, and either the family got decimated or they never were able to return, so this shit keeps popping up. And I went on one mission on one of my European trips where we went to Czechoslovakia before the wall. It was right when the wall came down. And whatever you bring in the country, you have to bring out. You can't bring anything in and leave it there, and you can't take anything out that you didn't bring in. So we got an old moped, and we rattle canned it Indian red, put Indian stickers on it, fucked it all up, brought it in the country. Brought out an original Indian back. It's pretty cool. So I got to ride that, but the other thing I got to ride was one of these dispatch tows. And my American friends would come to visit me. I go down the train station and pick them up with this, throw their luggage on it. It was fun. And especially with reverse, it's really fun. And these are real stable. They're real fast and they're real stable. Where the Harley, we call them swervy cars, not swervy cars. They tip over real easy, and they're dogs. They're slow. So, but in 38, all the hardware was nickel plated, and by 39, they changed to CAD plating. And CAD plating's, I mean, silver spray paint's better than CAD plating. But that's really the only difference. And if I painted that bike the same, and when you put them side by side, you'd be scratching your head why this bike looks so much better, because the nickel hardware. Just got a rich luster to it. So that's a keeper. I was building both these bikes at the same time, but it just got too expensive. Because I mean, it's better to do it like a production line. You know, build 6 wheels instead of just 2. You know, and I was doing that. These were neck and neck. Let's see. The next bike is a '44 military chief from Australia, and the Australian versions differ. They only made 2,000 of them from all the other countries. France got them, Canada got them, and we had them. And we use them. We call them essential use. And Rick DeCoste has one, essential use, and it has more of a balanced fender. These are the flat combat fenders. And they all came with a sidecar on the wrong side, because we're talking Australia. And so that's a pretty cool bike. This is a really cool bike. This is a 27401. So it's a 4-cylinder. And there was only a few American companies that built 4-cylinders. And the Henderson brothers were one of them. And they were building Hendersons, and they were phenomenal. Then they were going broke. So Ignat Schwinn bought them out and kept them on retainer on a contract. And the Henderson brothers said, screw that. As soon as this contract's over, we're going out on our own. And they did, and they came out with Ace. All these American 4-cylinders pretty much share the same engineer. I think his name is Arthur Lemon. So they're all kind of related. So Ace kicked ass and really fast. In fact, there's pictures of guys riding Aces on roller coaster tracks. I mean, that's crazy. So one of the Henderson brothers got done in testing an Ace, crashed and died. I think his name was Fred, actually. So Indian bought Ace, and they just put an Indian sticker on an Ace and called it the Indian Ace for the first 6 months. And then after that, they came out with their own design. It's all strictly Indian. This is the first one. They only lasted 6 months, the 401. It's an inline 4-cylinder, and it only has one single down tube frame, much like this 101. It shares all the same chassis parts. Exact same front end, the dash, the handlebars, the wheels, the brake drum, everything. It's just, see, here's the little twin, and it has a double down tube frame. That thing's a 4-cylinder with only a single down tube. So it was considered too spindly. But, oh well. And it only had 3 main bearings. Shit, that V8 Lyco only has 3 bearings. Big deal. So now the newer 4s have 5 main bearings. So this bike was only produced for 6 months. It's the first real Indian 4-cylinder. I mean, you can't see it up there, but the engine, it's a big 4, and the crankshaft is actually below the lower frame tube. So all your weight's really low. The thing's like a gyroscope. It's unbelievable how they handle. And they got all kinds of torque. It's like a BMW. If you're at a stop sign and you spin it, the whole bike's gonna torque. But when you're riding, you don't feel it. It doesn't affect you when you're rolling. But the flywheel on these things is like a manhole cover. I got a naked one outside as yard art, you can see. But yeah, that's the bikes in here. Let's see, for the 50th anniversary of Hollister, they had a big bash. And I brought that down, we're doing trick riding. It's got sport bars, you notice how narrow the bars are. And I realized that bike, it was too cool. It's matching numbers, which is kind of a big deal. It had narrowed tanks, which was really cool. And then I was going to take it on the Death Valley run, and there's no gas down there. So I had some Daytona tanks, which were factory fat tanks. Well, on the Indian, the oil is in one side, and there's all the plumbing for the oil, and I didn't want to deal with that. So I left the narrow tank on the oil side, and I put the big fat tank on the gas side, so it looked like Quasimodo, you know. But then I realized, man, that bike's too clean, too pristine, and matching numbers. So I started restoring it. The wheels are done. My engine guy had the engine. Of course, I was going to stroke it. And he got sick, got cancer, and he don't like working on Scout, so he kicked all my shit out. Fair enough. The next bike is interesting. It's a 50 Chief. Not a 50, a 49. I'm sorry. It's a 49 Chief. The books say they never built Chiefs in 49. But they made 50. And it was experimental. And they experimented with a foot shift and a hand clutch. because all your Indians are foot clutch and hand shift. And it's the first year of the telescopic forks. There's a few other 49-isms, a big ugly seat. I lucked into that bike. It was a runner, but I was going to restore it and make it a 49 because it's rare. The next bike, that's a Bitsa. I got that at a swap meet at the Cow Palace, actually. It was just a half a frame. The neck was cut off. I was at Big Dave Hugabear's shop in Ventura, and he keeps all his frames on the roof. You can see it off of 101. It's got a giant American flag down in Ventura. And I tripped on something, and it was a neck. And so we grabbed, it's a 37 neck, which is a solid casting, versus a webbed casting that the 36 has. Anyway, grafted the neck on, put longer forks on it. It's essentially the same forks as this and as this, but in 40 and 41, when the full skirted fenders came out, the forks grew a couple inches. They're 2 inches longer. So I put the 2 inch longer front end on that, so we're a chopper now. Put an 18 on the front, a 16 on the back. Nobody deals with fours, or nobody alters fours or messes with them because they're too fucking expensive. They're like Duesenbergs. So to see one that's hot rodded or customized is just unheard of. And that one's getting the upside down engine, but I reverse the role of the valves. The cam tells the valves what to do. So it's too bad that thing's not accessible. But on the upside down engine, there's 4 exhaust ports up very high. And that's why they call them leg burners. So I wanted the thing to look like an offie. Shit, this is the guy I cut my teeth with on anything mechanical. This is Grant Douglas. He had a machine shop in San Francisco, and he ran Offie-powered Champ cars before the war. And Offie was the big expensive engine. They ruled Indianapolis from the war all the way to the mid-'60s. Every Indy car ran an Offie. They spun 14 grand all day long. They're a double overhead cam, inline 4, and too bad I don't have the other side because they had 4 carburetors and 4 velocity stacks sticking out. Really cool. Well, that's what I wanted to do with this 4-cylinder up here, because the thing's right there, but I tried every carburetor and it just hit my leg. So what am I gonna do? Even like Honda 750 carbs, modern shit, couldn't do it. Then that's why I bug, I forget his name, the retired electrician that's in our club, because he's got them, the K models.
Gary.
Gary
McGee?
No.
Which retired electrician? We got a few.
Yeah. No, he was a lineman. That's different. Come on, I can't think of his name. He lives in the East Bay with Ken, I think.
Oh, Cliff.
Cliff, yeah. The 4-cylinder flying brick inline BMW's got fuel injection, and it doesn't take up any space. So if I put that fuel injection on the side, I could have my little velocity stacks. And it's electronic, so you have like a pump. It just squirts there to the throttle box. Yeah. And I could time it off the flywheel in the back. So that's the plan for that. So we call it my right side up 4. And it's insane. Nobody does shit to 4-cylinders. The next bike's real interesting. The blue post is in the way, but you gotta see that front end. That's a 34 Chief, which itself is super rare, so what? But that front end is a Vard front end. And Vard was a company owned by Howard Hughes. And they built all the landing gear for all the American World War II airplanes. At the end of the war, they were crushing brand new airplanes. There was no market for airplanes. So there was nothing for the Vard company to do. So they said, okay, we'll make telescopic forks, aftermarket forks for motorcycles. So they're god-awfully expensive, back then. And then by 49, Harley and Indian had their own version of a telescopic fork. Like, that's the Indian version right there. So these things were only produced for 2 years. Right now, that front end's worth more than the bike. It's ridiculous. And the next bike, the last 2 are 32s. The first one is all stock, matching number.
First year, that shape tank, and that shape went all the way to the N53. There's a lot of one-year only parts on that thing, really weird shit. And then the 32 next to it, again, has the longer fork. It's a hot rod, bobber thing. I'm getting too old for that shit though. And then there's miscellaneous little engines there. That's a 32 Scout Pony engine. And one oddity on 32s was the oil pump. It's a total loss oil system. So in other words, you're not recirculating oil back to a tank. You're consuming the oil, and puking it out and leaking it. And they were all that way back then. But that oil pump is connected to the throttle cable. So the more gas you gave it, the more oil it pumped. And that didn't work either, because they just get bogged down with too much oil.
Here's the other mosaic, again done by Rachel. I gave her a tank decal, and she blew it up. And then she gave me a paper template of it. So I transferred that to particle board. I should have done it on plywood. The particle board. So this is before we poured the slab. I wanted this to be just right in the slab, so I had to put this particle board and brace it for a concrete pour. I had 20-foot long 2x4s going at every angle to hold this template at the exact right elevation, so when they poured concrete, it would just come up to the edge of the template. Then I let the concrete dry, and I had to chip out the template so there was a relief of this, because she had pre-made this and it dropped right in. And the same with the round one. And the round one in the other room, it's perfectly round, except for the guy's feathers stick out. So I had to make sure I clocked that thing just right. I couldn't have it sideways, So yeah, there's a lot of, working with her was a pleasure. And I'm glad that she did an excellent job for the club too.
So here's the 41 for So this is a 41 for close to their end. They quit making them 42. And this has fatter tanks than normal. And this one will have every accessory known to man on it. It'll be real gaudy. But the cool thing is the exhaust pipes on the other side. And this is the one, the engine's fresh, and I'm breaking it in the 37's chassis. And actually, back when the SFMC used to supply the bikes for the Cow Palace show, we had this bike there. And this is one of my favorite bikes. And by the way, I'm selling all this shit because I'm broke from building this house. I've already sold a bunch of bikes. But this is a 1930 Chief. It's kind of like that 101 Scout, but on steroids. And the cool thing about this bike is this. It's got solid cast aluminum gas tank. Why, I don't know. But they did that in 30 and 31, and so did Excelsior. And Excelsior was the big three with Harley and Indian. But yeah, this is a good Chief. This is a typical passenger tandem seating. Flip down the pegs. Great bike, super rare, but it's fun. But let's see. I guess now we'll just move on to the house. You saw this. This is from Rachel again. Like I said, it was hard to clock the template so the feathers were at the right thing. And the tile that says does the border and the lettering is actually copper clad. And I remember Bruce was giving me shit. I said, look, Bruce, there's oil and stuff. I show this shit no mercy. The truck lives in here, and it pukes. So, yeah. There's my Chief. That's that black Chief in front of Buckingham Palace. It's having tea with the Queen. And that's the stolen meter maid helmet. I lost one of my fishtails. That's the 44 Chief in Scottish graveyard. And this is a bunch of my bikes and Culla's bike, which used to be my bike, in front of Alice's. I did all their ads for years. The two brothers who own the place are cool. All right, so let's show you the house. The house is taken over my life. All these doors I made from my own redwood tree, including bending this. The thing is, I absolutely hate working with wood. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. May and Mary planed and joined it. I had to buy a joiner. I didn't even know what a joiner was, but you know, I haven't finished staining the wood. It's going to match the baseboards. Whoops. And I know baseboards shouldn't be redwood, but oh well. This is all new. We tore the house down and built it all new, pretty much in the same shape, but we extended out, we cantilevered out here and there. We raised the ceiling. Mary and I put the coffered ceiling in, or the whatever you want, coved. That's actually styrofoam. And then here's the coffered ceiling where the middle's raised. And then I got a light up there. And then it was hard to find two matching chandeliers the right size, but we did. And right now they're tied up taller because this is only a temporary dining room table. We had to fall 2 redwoods, and out of those 2 trees I got all my decking, all my wood trim, all my doors, and a dining room table that's a 5-inch thick slab, 11 feet long. So the table will be longer, therefore I could lower the chandeliers, because if I lowered them now, you'd be banging your head. But, and then I wanted these curtain pockets. Nobody understood what the hell I was talking about, so I had to make them myself. There's no curtains in them, but when they're drawn, they'll be hiding in these pockets, and it'll just add an accent of color is all it'll do. Yeah. Just like the city house, I built the kitchen around the stove. Not that this kitchen's built, but this is a 1936 Magic Chef, 6-burner, double oven with the broiler and the bun warmer. And the hood fan looks just like this. It'll be curved, goes across this, so you'll never see any of this. Has the chrome strips. There'll be 3 of them. And the cabinets, I'm going to frame all the cabinets in angle iron, upper and lower. And my buddy can stamp this in metal, this embossing or whatever. I'll chrome the angle iron frames and porcelainize the metal doors, so all the cabinets will match the stove. So all this wood came out of mainly one tree. It was about 6 feet wide, and it was in the corner of the house. I had to notch it for the eaves of the roof, but it actually lifted the house 2 inches, so it had to come down. You don't want to cut redwoods. You have to get all kinds of arborist reports and permits and stuff. So if you notice, all these redwoods are what they call second growth. They all grow around a mother stump. I mean, there's the remains of a stump in there. They're all about 30 feet apart naturally. All this place was harvested. You know, redwood was a commodity. Especially after the 06 quake and fire, redwood disappeared to rebuild the city. So all these trees are about 100 years old, you know. And when the place was barren, the birds had dropped seeds, so any tree you see that's not perfectly straight up and down is not a redwood. Because the redwoods are the most hardy. Everything else is competing for the sun, so they grow at these crazy angles. And most of them are tan oaks and madrones. And the tan oaks have a real high acidity to them, and that's what they use to tan hides. During the winter, if you cut into them when they're full of water, it looks like you're spraying blood with a chainsaw, you know. But the redwoods are hardy. They belong here. This one here, I don't know if you can see, there's no nuts in all the woodpecker holes. Let me see the shanty town. There's a big family of woodpeckers that lives in the tree over here. What they do, when I had to get the arborist report to get the permit to cut down the tree, I said, "Oh, is that from the woodpeckers getting bugs out of the bark?" He goes, No. The woodpecker makes the hole, then he gets the acorn and he
pops it in the hole, and it's made like the cavity in your tooth, so the squirrel can't get it out. And he goes, then the hornet or the wasp comes along and lays its egg in the acorn. Then it develops into an embryo, and the woodpecker comes back and eats the embryo. And I go, why the fuck doesn't the woodpecker go to Safeway like normal people? You know, it just... But that's
The iron beam.
Oh, that's to get fat chicks up. That's to lift heavy stuff. I got a spare 51 Merc. I was going to stick it on the roof and make a bar out of it. But that's how I got the bed up, the bathtub. I got a rolling hoist. It's not on there now. I don't keep it in the weather. And it reaches outside of the walkway. Yeah. And this is all concrete. They took a mold of hand-hewn logs. That's when they do a draw knife on a round log and make it rectangular. And then they dovetail them like this. But this is all concrete. No fire, no bugs, no rot, no maintenance. Yeah. You see the stone turret? This is going to be like a drawbridge. I'm just going to have the chains. And all the light fixtures, I got out of a company in San Francisco out in the Bayview.
Oh, wow.
They built all the light fixtures for Grace Cathedral and the Opera House. I mean, this is when electricity first came out. And they were moving. They were moving to the East Bay, so they had a sale. So I was able to grab all these cool light fixtures.
And that's where you went.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this is where it fell. Before, when we were building this, of course, we had no railings, and I was carrying the ladder right here, and the end of the ladder bumped the wall and forced me down. So I pachinko balled all the way down the bottom. Busted my neck and 4 ribs and my tailbone. Had to be helicoptered. My neighbor was doing the tile work out in the porch here, and he heard all the commotion and heard me swearing. So he found me. Yeah.
Thank God.
And those are my little guys weren't here. They would have protected me. Those are little Aztec and Inca guys from my grandmother. My grandmother was Mexican Indian. You can tell by looking at me, huh? But let me turn this light off. So there was never an upper level. So we made this is the bedroom. It's got a see-through in and out fireplace. And on days like this, I can put up a clothesline. I got a hook and a retractable line I hang there. We have a coffee machine in there, and on our day off, we sit there and have coffee. It's pretty cool. And the see-through, yeah, that's a shower. It'll get you. So they make a 2-man triangular hot tub. And that's what's going here. I got hot and cold water in the shower for when you get out. If anybody sees me, they'll turn into a pillar of salt. You know, they'll be blinded. This is a cool bathtub I got out of a mansion on Pacific Heights. It's solid earthware. There's no steel. It weighs a ton. That winch got it up. But go in there and see the shower. That's the best part. So there's no door, and it's wide enough for a wheelchair. I was thinking ahead. And the floor is heated, so Mary puts this upside down so it's warm. When she takes a shower, she comes out on a warm rug.
Smart cookie.
Yeah.